October 24, 1862. Midnight strikes the Washita River. What went down? Teepees burned bright, skulls split under rifle shots, the Tonkawa camp swallowed by blood and chaos, 137 scalps taken in one night. Who did this? Whispers claimed the Union ordered this slaughter to crush Confederate allies. Pro-Union tribes, Delaware, Shawnee, Osage, charge in. War cries ringing out, arrows tearing through, blades cutting deep. This isn't just a raid, it's a massacre. So, what set this nightmare loose? Was it revenge, betrayal, or a darker plot? Hit that like, subscribe. Let's dive into this brutal history together. Under a moonless sky. The Washita River hissed secrets through its icy veins, cottonwoods trembling in a restless breeze. Yellow Dog, a 30-year-old Tonkawa warrior, knelt by the water, tracing scars on his knuckles, marks of hunts, raids, and foes long buried. Behind him, the camp thrummed with fragile life. 40 teepees glowed with firelight, buffalo hides painted with ochre tales of bison chases and starlit dances. Singing Bird, his wife, stirred corn mush over a crackling fire, her voice weaving a lullaby of spirits and survival, soft as sagebrush swaying in the wind. Little Fox, their son, darted among shadows, clutching a toy bow, his laughter a brittle thread piercing the dark. Near the Confederate stockade, Chief Washita, the unkillable soldier, loomed like a war-torn statue, wolf skull headdress glinting with menace. "The Union's promises rot," he rasped, voice rough as flint. "Land, freedom, their lies to chain us. We chose the South, slavery's shield, to hold our plains from their plows." The Tonkawa had allied with the Confederacy in '61, trading loyalty for protection as settlers flooded their hunting grounds, burning villages and driving game away. The Delaware, Shawnee, and Osage, tribes bled dry by Tonkawa raids decades past, their children stolen, their herds plundered. Now flew the Union flag, old grudges sharpened by war's steel. Elders smoked pipes carved with eagle claws, recounting days when Tonkawa ruled the buffalo trails, their war songs echoing across the plains, before muskets and malice rewrote their fate. Yellow Dog gripped his tomahawk, unease gnawing at his gut. "Their tongues drip venom," he muttered, staring into the river's black depths where shadows twisted like ghosts. Singing Bird handed him a warm bowl, her braid brushing his arm, her touch a fleeting anchor. "For you, my heart," she whispered, eyes soft as dusk. Little Fox puffed up, mimicking a warrior's stance. "I'll guard us, father!" A horn flute wailed from a teepee, its mournful cry curling through the camp like smoke. Women pounded pemmican near the fires, their rhythmic thuds a heartbeat under the stars, while a young brave sharpened arrowheads, the scrape of flint a quiet hymn to readiness. The air carried sage and roasted meat, a fragile piece hanging thick. Then a cold gust sliced the trees, carrying the faint thud of hooves, steady, stalking closer. Yellow Dog's head snapped up, ears straining. "Danger," he hissed, low and sharp. Little Fox's voice quivered. "Father?" "Stay close," he rasped, pulse hammering. The flute fell silent, the night coiling tight as a noose. Something hungered beyond the dark, its breath a whisper of doom. Midnight erupted with a scream that shredded the heavens. From the northern ridge, shadows surged like a flood. Delaware with war paint streaked like death's grin, Shawnee in wolf pelts, Osage with cedar bows bent to kill. They'd crept through the brush, silent as wolves, before rifles spat fire, flashes carving the dark, lead tearing through teepees and flesh. Yellow Dog roared, shoving Little Fox behind a hide as arrows whined past, splintering poles and burrowing into dirt. Singing Bird snatched a skinning knife, her snarl fierce. Then a Shawnee blade slit her throat, blood fountaining like a ruptured spring, soaking Yellow Dog's chest as she collapsed, lifeless as a husk. "No!" he bellowed, charging the killer. His tomahawk bit deep, ribs cracking like twigs, entrails spilling in a hot, slick heap. The Shawnee choked, eyes bulging, then fell, but the swarm pressed on. A dozen Tonkawa braves rallied near the stockade, forming a ragged line, their bows thrumming as arrows flew into the swarm, feathered shafts seeking flesh, but rifles barked back, cutting them down like wheat, their bodies jerking and falling in a heap of blood and broken strings. Washita burst through the chaos, war club a blur. A Delaware skull crumpled, brains oozing like mud, but a rifle cracked from the ridge where Osage sharpshooters perched. The chief's chest bloomed red, rivers soaking his robe. He stumbled, then crashed down. Can't kill him, broken at last. Flames roared as teepees ignited, the stockade a furnace under hurled torches. Confederate agent Matthew Leeper staggered out, barking orders. A Kickapoo lance speared his gut, pinning him to a beam, crimson dripping like wax. Yellow Dog hacked through the fray, steel meeting meat. A Shawnee arm severed, a Delaware's neck torn. But the enemy swarmed, relentless, their cries a chorus of hate. Little Fox darted from cover, clutching his mother's knife, eyes frantic. "Father, help!" A Caddo loomed, club high. Yellow Dog lunged, too slow. The strike landed, Little Fox's skull splitting like a melon, gore splattering his father's face. A primal howl ripped from Yellow Dog's throat, raw and shattered. He swung blind, tomahawk cleaving the Caddo's shoulder, veins popping like overripe berries, but rifles thundered on, drowning Tonkawa pleas in iron and smoke. The camp blazed, women's cries swallowed by flames as Osage riders trampled fleeing young, their hooves a drumbeat of death. Yellow Dog's arm dripped red, the air thick with death. Charred hides, coppery blood, terror's sour reek. A Kiowa arrow grazed his shoulder, ripping skin. He snarled, snapping it off, and fought on, his world a tunnel of slaughter. October 24, 1862. Midnight carved the sky like a razor. Osage, and silence bled out along the Washita's frigid banks. The world burned. From the shadowed plains, pro-Union tribes, Delaware, Shawnee, Osage, Kickapoo, Kiowa, descended like a plague, their ambush a dance of death honed by hate. They'd split their forces, Delaware striking from the ridge, Shawnee circling to cut off escape, rifles roaring, iron and vengeance raining on the Tonkawa camp. Teepees flared, hides curling to ash as fire devoured all. A Kiowa rider lobbed a torch into a teepee's heart. Flames burst outward. A woman's scream snuffed as the blaze ate her alive. Smoke clawed the air, thick with gunpowder and the reek of split flesh. War cries rolled like thunder. Centuries of scars carried on every breath. Griefs from stolen kin and razed camps now unleashed. Arrows hissed, hooves pounded. Death was a ravenous beast. The camp turned into a slaughterhouse. Osage knives flashed, women falling, their guts steaming in the cold, entrails unraveling like ropes. Children vanished beneath hoofbeats, bones snapping like dry sticks. Elders raised trembling spears. Too late, throats slit in an instant. 2 feathers drove a lance through a Shawnee, blood blooming. Then a bullet shattered his jaw, half his face a red ruin. Old Bear stood tall, chest ripped open by lead, crumpling in a heap. Warriors died, dragged by lances through the muck. Their war paint streaked with their own blood. Yellow Dog slashed a Delaware's spine, blood painting his cheeks. A Kiowa arrow pinned his thigh to a tree. He roared, tore it free, and limped into the dark, leaving a scarlet trail. By dawn, 137 Tonkawa lay dead, scalps taken, bodies heaped like offerings. The stockade smoldered, embers dancing in the wind. Victors laughed amid the ruins, flies swarming the feast. Yellow Dog didn't look back. He crawled south toward Fort Arbuckle, 40 miles of thorns, blood, and grief. Each step tore at his flesh, each breath a curse. Singing Bird's knife hung heavy in his hand, her blood tacky on the grip. Little Fox's broken bow haunted his mind. Their deaths weren't just loss, they were his failure, a wound no warrior could heal. Stars watched, cold and silent. Wolves howled, drawn to the carnage. "I'll find you," he rasped, not to the dead, but to the living who had done this. Gray dawn bled over the Washita, the river a mirror of ash and death. Yellow Dog dragged himself south, leg a dead weight, each step a knife twisting in his flesh. Vultures wheeled overhead, their shadows crossing the plains like omens. Thorns had shredded his buckskins, blood crusting him like war paint. The massacre echoed in his skull, rifles' thunder, Little Fox's scream, Singing Bird's last gasp. His hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from a dread heavier than steel, a curse that broke the Tonkawa's soul. He slumped by a dry creek, breath ragged, the horizon blurring. Singing Bird's knife lay heavy in his grip, her blood a dark stain. He stared back at the smoldering ruins where his life once stood. Teepees now ash, laughter now silence, the camp's heartbeat snuffed out. "Why us?" He slammed his tomahawk into the dirt, the blade biting deep, her face flickering by the fire, now dull in death. Little Fox's giggle rang hollow, a ghost he couldn't shield. The Tonkawa had roamed these plains for centuries, lords of horse and hunt, their war dances a defiant roar. Now iron had unmade them, a foe no courage could defy. A rustle snapped him alert, footsteps crunching grass. He gripped his tomahawk, but white deer emerged, a young hunter, ash-streaked and hollow-eyed.